If I had known this back then, I might have saved my marriage, held onto my confidence, and still felt like a man. That's what one of my patients, a 72-year-old gentleman, quietly shared with me after years of silent struggle. And he's far from alone. I've heard this same story again and again from men in their 60s, 70s, and even 80s. Good men, proud men, men who believed they were simply growing old, when in truth, they were never told the real story, the truth that could have changed everything. My name is Dr. James Whitmore. I'm a physician focused on men's health. For over 30 years, I've stood alongside thousands of men through some of the most private, painful, and transformative moments of their lives. And if there's one thing I've learned, it's this: most men don't lose their sex lives because of age. They lose it because of what they don't know. And that ignorance isn't their fault. No one ever taught us what truly matters. You've probably been told that sexual decline is just part of getting older, that after 60, you should simply accept it. But what if I told you that's not just wrong, it's dangerously misleading? The truth is, there are 4 simple but powerful secrets about your sexual health that can reignite your energy, restore your confidence, and transform your experience of intimacy well into your 70s and beyond. In just a moment, I'll share all 4 with you. But stick with me till the end, because I'll also reveal the single biggest mistake that quietly erodes most men's sex lives, and how you can avoid it starting today. This isn't about fantasy. It's about freedom. And it's time you heard the truth. Before we begin, if you haven't already, I invite you to subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss any of the honest, no-nonsense advice I offer, designed just for men like you, who want to take back control of their health. And if you find this video helpful, type a Brian on Brian in the comments. If not, type a Brian0 Brian and tell me how I can do better, because your voice matters here. Now, let's get started. The first secret, one that surprises many men, isn't about desire, hormones, or even age. It's about something far more basic and often overlooked. If your erections have changed, if they're softer, less reliable, or don't last like they used to, you might be surprised to learn the problem probably isn't in your head. It's in your blood. Let me explain. Sexual secret number 1, erections depend on blood flow, not just desire. I'll never forget the look on Mark's face when he walked into my office. He was 71, a former Marine, proud father of 3, still mowing his own lawn, still standing tall. But when he sat down, he looked like a man beaten down. Brian, he said, Brian, I still want her. I just can't get it to work anymore. What's wrong with me, Brian? What I told Mark is what I want to tell you now, and I hope you hear me clearly, because this secret could save your life, not just your sex life. Most men think that if they can't get or keep an erection, it means they've lost desire. Or worse, they believe it's just age catching up. But that's not the truth. The real reason is simpler and far more serious. Erections depend on blood flow. When blood doesn't move properly, it doesn't just affect your bedroom, it's a warning sign that your heart, your brain, and your entire vascular system could be in danger. Let me say it plainly. Struggling with erections is often the very first symptom of cardiovascular disease. Not the second, not the third, the first. Long before chest pain or stroke, your body may whisper to you through weaker erections. If you ignore this warning, the consequences can be deadly. I've seen men wait too long. By the time they finally come to me, the damage has already spread to their heart. That's why I say this isn't just about sex, it's about survival. Yet, most men never hear this truth. Instead, they're handed a little blue pill and sent on their way, unaware that their arteries are slowly narrowing, their blood vessels stiffening, and the very system that once gave them strength and joy is now waving red flags. If Mark had known this 20 years earlier, he might have started walking daily, eating healthier, quitting cigarettes, controlling his blood sugar, and maybe, just maybe, avoided the triple bypass surgery that followed 3 months later. So, listen closely. If your erections have changed, don't be ashamed, but don't ignore the signs either. Your body is speaking loud and clear. Don't let silence cost you everything. And as eye-opening as this truth is, it's nothing compared to the second secret. Because while blood moves through the body, there's a deeper force that shapes your energy, your feelings, and even your identity as a man. Let's talk about it. If you're still with me and this strikes a chord, drop a Brian on Brian in the comments so I know you're listening. Your response tells me these conversations truly matter. Now, let's move on to the next powerful truth. Sexual secret 2, testosterone isn't just about muscles, it's about connection. I once had a patient named Dennis, 68 years old, a retired teacher with a kind heart, a dry sense of humor, and a love for woodworking. At first, he didn't come for sexual problems, he came because, as he put it, "Brian, I just don't feel like myself anymore, Brian." He was tired all the time, short-tempered with his wife, distant from his friends, and had stopped doing the things he loved. His marriage was strained, and he couldn't explain why. Looking me in the eye, he said, "Brian Doc, I'm not depressed, but I'm definitely not me, Brian." When I tested Dennis's testosterone, the results spoke volumes. His levels were barely above the clinical low, a level that drains drive, clarity, and a man's sense of self. What many men don't realize is testosterone isn't just about libido or physical strength. It's the foundation of how a man connects with the world. It fuels confidence, motivation, memory, emotional bonds, and yes, sexual desire. When it drops, everything else follows, slowly, quietly, and dangerously. This part breaks my heart. Most men never get tested. They're told it's normal for their age, or worse, they're prescribed antidepressants or sleeping pills to mask symptoms that are hormonal in nature. I've witnessed marriages fall apart, careers fade, and men lose their very identity, not because they lacked willpower, but because they were running on empty and didn't know it. Dennis told me he thought he'd fallen out of love with his wife. But once we brought his testosterone back to a healthy range through lifestyle changes and guided therapy, something shifted. He smiled again. He picked up his tools again. And the way he looked at his wife, well, that spark came back. Not because of a pill, but because we treated the root cause, not just the symptom. Low testosterone doesn't shout, it whispers. It steals from you little by little, until one day you wake up wondering where your passion went, where your energy went, where you went. And if you don't catch it early, it can take years to turn it around. So, if you're feeling off, not just physically, but emotionally, don't just chalk it up to getting older. It might be your body's quiet cry for help. While testosterone fuels much of your inner fire, the next secret unlocks how you truly connect with another human being, how intimacy becomes not just possible, but deeply powerful, especially in later years. Let's dive in. Sexual secret 3, intimacy is a skill, not just a feeling. I remember a conversation with Harold, a 74-year-old man married over 45 years. He sat quietly in my office, his eyes a little glassy, and after a long pause, he said, "Brian Doc, I think my wife and I love each other, but it feels like we've become roommates, Brian." There was no anger or resentment in his voice, just a quiet sadness. Then he asked a question I've heard far too often, "Brian, is that just what happens when you get old?" Brian, that question stayed with me because the truth is, no, that's not what has to happen. But it often does when no one ever teaches us otherwise. Real intimacy doesn't magically appear. It's a skill you build, like laying bricks for a house. And if you stop building it, it doesn't just stay the same, it slowly crumbles. Most men never learned this. We were taught to pursue, conquer, perform, but not to connect, listen, or be truly present. We were told sex was about performance, proving something, being Brian enough Brian, but as we age, those measures change. If we don't grow with them, we lose what we worked so hard to find, closeness. What Harold was feeling wasn't a lack of love, it was a lack of practice. When intimacy becomes only physical, and that connection starts to fade or shift, many men don't know how to adapt. They withdraw, go quiet, stop reaching out, and before long, they find themselves lying next to someone they barely speak to anymore. Someone who used to be their whole world. Here's what I told Harold: intimacy is more than touch. It's in the way you hold a conversation, share memories, ask questions without trying to fix, listen without judging, and show affection without expecting anything back. When you stop seeing your partner as someone to impress and start seeing them as someone to understand, intimacy doesn't fade, it grows deeper. And here's the hardest truth: by the time most men realize this, they've already lost the connection they didn't know how to keep. But the moment you begin to treat intimacy as a skill, everything changes. You start to see that connection isn't gone. It's waiting to be rebuilt. But there's one more secret, one quietly sabotaging even the strongest men behind closed doors. And chances are, it's affecting you right now without you knowing. Let's talk about it. If you're still here and this message resonates, go ahead and type Brian on Brian in the comments. It lets me know you're with me and that this matters to you. Now, let's move on to the fourth and final secret. Sexual secret 4, porn is killing your real-world desire. I once had a man in his mid-60s, married nearly 40 years, sit across from me and say, "Brian, I don't understand it. I still watch porn. I still feel aroused. But when it comes to being with my wife, I feel nothing. I love her. I want to be close. But when the moment comes, I'm numb, Brian." There was real pain in his voice, not embarrassment, but pain, confusion, guilt, and a deep fear that maybe something inside him had broken for good. This is one of the most misunderstood, most ignored, and yet most dangerous truths I've seen in my years working with men. Porn, especially when used regularly over time, rewires your brain. It changes what turns you on. What used to be a real, intimate connection becomes replaced by instant, artificial dopamine spikes. Click after click, your mind learns to respond to fantasy, not reality. Most men don't realize that porn doesn't just affect their sex life, it affects their ability to feel. It hijacks the part of the brain that's meant for bonding and real connection. Over time, it erodes the natural, healthy pathways of desire. Your partner starts to feel less exciting, less stimulating, not because anything is wrong with them, but because your brain craves novelty, control, and detachment. Here's the hard truth: by the time men notice the damage, it's already deeply embedded. It's not just about struggling to perform, it's about not being fully present, feeling distant even in moments that should bring closeness. I've had men sit in my office with tears in their eyes, admitting they feel more emotionally connected to a screen than to the woman who's loved them most of their life. That's not just sad, it's devastating. But there is hope. I've seen men break free. It starts with awareness, stepping back, and giving your mind and body the time to recalibrate, to reconnect with what's real, with what truly matters. I'm not here to shame you. I'm here to tell you a truth no one else will say out loud. Porn may feel harmless, but it's costing you more than you know. For many men, it's quietly killing the one thing they can't afford to lose: real-world connection. And yet, with all this, low blood flow, hormonal shifts, lost intimacy, porn-induced detachment, there's one final mistake beneath them all. One mistake that silently chips away at a man's confidence, his self-worth, and his ability to recover. Most never notice it until it's too late. But you still have time. Let me show you. Here's a bonus secret, the one mistake that quietly destroys sexual confidence. If I had to pick one thing, one quiet, creeping habit that I believe robs more men of their sexual confidence than anything else, it's this: suffering in silence. Not the loss of erections, not low testosterone, not relationship troubles, or years of unhealthy habits. It's silence. That quiet voice inside that says, "Brian, just keep it to yourself. It's probably nothing. Don't talk about it. Be a man, Brian." I've seen silence ruin more lives than any diagnosis I've ever given. Men sit in front of me with tears in their eyes and say some version of the same thing: "Brian, I thought I was the only one. I was too embarrassed to say anything. I just hoped it would get better, Brian." But it doesn't get better. It gets worse. Because silence doesn't protect you. It isolates you. And isolation is the enemy of recovery. The moment a man starts to question his masculinity, his performance, or his worth, and he tells no one, something starts to break down inside him. It doesn't happen all at once. It happens in stages, first his confidence, then his relationships, and eventually his identity. I've watched strong, capable, intelligent men shrink away from their own lives because they thought they had to fight this battle alone. And here's the heartbreaking part, most of what they were struggling with was treatable, preventable, even reversible. But no one knew because they never opened their mouths to ask for help. Sexual health isn't just physical. It's about self-respect. It's about giving yourself permission, not to have all the answers, but to talk, to ask questions, to admit when something's wrong. That's not weakness. That's courage. I know it feels vulnerable. I know it can feel like admitting defeat. But from where I sit, those quiet, honest conversations are where healing truly begins. Because once a man breaks the silence, he's no longer powerless. He has a starting point, a plan, a way forward. If you've been holding something inside, maybe for months, maybe for years, I want you to know it's not too late. You're not broken. You're not done. You just need the right direction, the right truth, and the willingness to take one honest step. And that brings us to the heart of it all. Knowing these secrets is one thing, but what you do with them, that's where everything changes. Let's bring it home. You're not done yet. I've spent nearly 3 decades sitting with men, hearing their regrets, fears, and frustrations. And if there's one thing I can tell you after all these years, it's this: aging doesn't end your masculinity. Silence does. Shame does. Believing the lie that it's too late does. The truth is, most of what men lose as they get older, vitality, connection, confidence, isn't lost because of age. It's lost because they were never told the right things soon enough. That's what today was about. We began with the hard truth that your erections are a direct signal of your vascular health, your blood flow. Ignore that signal, and it's not just your sex life that suffers, it could be your life. Then we uncovered how testosterone, more than just a hormone, fuels your motivation, your energy, and your ability to connect emotionally. Low testosterone doesn't just shrink muscles, it quietly shrinks your sense of self. We talked about intimacy, not the kind built on performance or bravado, but the kind that requires intention, vulnerability, and true presence. It's a skill no one teaches, and most men only realize they need when the silence between them and their partner becomes too loud to ignore. Then came the hard truth about porn, a modern habit that rewires the brain in subtle but damaging ways. It promises pleasure but often delivers loneliness. It replaces reality with illusion. And before you know it, the person lying next to you feels a million miles away. And finally, we came to the biggest trap of all, the mistake so many men fall into without realizing it: silence. Not asking questions, not seeking help. Believing that struggle and isolation are just part of being a man. I'm telling you now, it doesn't have to be that way. If you've made it this far, hear this from someone who sat across from men just like you for most of his life: you are not done. You're not too old. You're not too broken. Your story isn't finished. What matters now isn't what you didn't know yesterday, it's what you choose to do today. The truth is here. The path is clear. And the rest, that's in your hands now.